Welcome to another episode of the Super Bold podcast. I am Fred Joyle, and I go out there and find amazing people who've made some really bold moves in their lives and had incredible results from it, and also had some times where they didn't take action and stacked a regret instead. And I like to dig into that as well. And I heard this person speak recently, and we are so aligned on what we talk about in terms of boldness and confidence. And she comes at it from the side of athletes, and we're going to get into that, but she has done some incredible research on it as well. So we're going to get right into it. Her name is Dr. Cindra Kamphoff, and she has a book now called Beyond Grit, but she's got another book that's going to be coming out very soon. Cindra, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Fred. I can't wait to talk to you about all this, and it's going to be amazing to positively influence your listeners today.
So let's go right into what inspired you to dive into this concept of confidence and how it can be grown and improved.
Absolutely. So I'm trained as a sport and performance psychology, mental performance coach. And so I've been working for about 20 years in the field, working with executives and leaders and football teams and high school teams, high school athletes, college athletes. And one of the things that people keep coming back to me for is more confidence. And it doesn't really matter if it's a top executive who's almost ready to retire. Actually, that person might be experiencing a lack of confidence because they're not sure what's next, to the Harvard doctor who, is maybe lacking confidence when he's in surgery or when she's in surgery, to the professional athlete. And so I've spent 4 years working with the Minnesota Vikings as their mental performance coach, and supported the USA track and field team. And so, what's interesting, Fred, is that confidence fluctuates. It comes and goes. And we think that it's a skill that can't be trained. We don't even know that it's a skill, right? Many people think that it's just something that you're born with, or you have, or you don't have. But the great thing is that you can intentionally grow your confidence. And that's what our national research study on confidence really showed, is that confidence is something you can continue to grow and nurture, and you need to.
So most people would think, well, athletes, why wouldn't they be incredibly confident? But there's a lot of stuff hanging them back. But as you know, but the other thing that's important is confidence is not like this level that you're at. It's like, I'm really confident or I'm not confident at all. There's this, what I call it, is situational confidence, where there's some people are really great in front of a crowd or at a party. They're meeting everybody, but one-on-one, they're shy. They're hesitant to have any sort of deep conversation. And then other people are the opposite. Some people are really confident at work and really terrible in their parenting because they just don't feel competent at that or confident in that. So how did we get this way, Cindra?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think what you're referring to is Albert Bender's definition of self-efficacy, which is like situation-specific confidence. And you're right that we can feel confident in one area of our life and not confident in the other. I think of confidence as 4 things. I think it's a feeling, and that feeling actually can come and go. And sometimes when we lack confidence as a feeling, we infer that that's like a lack of belief in ourselves, right? Like, let's say we're getting ready to speak to 2,000 people on stage. Like, of course you're going to be nervous. Of course, maybe there's going to be a question if you're ready, right? And so that's the feeling of confidence that can come and go. And it's really our interpretation of like the anxiety and energy that makes the difference on if it's if it's going to impact our confidence. It's also a skill, something that you can grow, you can develop. It's a practice. So it's something that you can continue to use every day to, we know it's one of the strongest predictors of performance. So that's why you got to keep growing your confidence. And it's a belief in self. And so I think it's those 4 things. And the feeling of confidence comes and goes. It's not very stable. Whereas the belief in yourself is a little bit more stable, right? And so how did we get to where we are today? That's a really interesting question. I would start with just saying, like, as humans, we have a negativity bias, which means negative events get stored more quickly and they linger longer. So we're more likely to think about what's wrong with us, what's wrong with the situation, what's wrong with our family, what's wrong with our job, instead of like what we love about it. And we also know from our national research study on confidence, and we surveyed people, by the way, Fred, all over the United States and all different generations, that we do have a confidence crisis in America today. And I say that because of Gen Zers and young millennials, we found that one in two of them consistently or frequently feel like they're not enough, and one in two consistently or frequently compare themselves to others. And so a Gen Zer in our study was defined as the ages of 19 to 29. And then a young millennial group is like 30 to 35. And so these are our next generation of our workforce. And as like leaders, as I know some of you are entrepreneurs, maybe you're in sales and you might supervise other people. It is I think our like we must address the confidence of our people, because we also found that fascinating things about confidence in the bottom line. We found, for example, that when organizations and leaders build confidence, they have more productivity. There's a higher revenue, there's less stress, better decision making, and more innovation. And so we also found one third of people have quit a job because their boss was not building their confidence. So if you want to make more money this year, and if you want your team to be more productive, confidence is not just a personal issue, it's an organizational issue.
Yeah, that's something that you talk about, its impact on the economy of your individual business, but if you look at this generational underconfidence, that's impacting the growth of the American economy going forward. I mean, this is the next generation of workers, managers, C-suite people, maybe even, and parents. If you're an underconfident person in your job and in a
Yeah.
lot of your life, how are you going to raise bold and confident children? You're gonna impair them as you are impaired. And I think I blame the parents of this generation quite a bit for this as well.
Yeah.
But it's not intentionally. It's just
Right.
like my generation. My parents just wanted their kids to have a job, like a secure job. Like we want you to be the first generation going to college, coming out and having a career. Because
Yeah.
my dad was a depressionary guy. He wanted security, and that's what he wanted for me. And I made him very uncomfortable with how comfortable I was with risk. But this generation just doesn't want their kids to feel any discomfort, any stress, it's this whole thing is like, no, everybody wins in the race kind of concept. This has been talked about forever. But the impact of that is when you think average is great, and you actually deep down subconsciously know that it isn't. And
Mhm.
that's going to affect your confidence. So you did this study. Uh, what did you feel like the most painful truth was that came out of this? Um,
Yeah, I think the great question. I mean, not only did we find this really interesting data about Gen Zers that I didn't expect, and as a mother who has two Gen Zers, I have a son who is a high school junior and a freshman in college. I really took this to heart because I thought one in two Gen Zers consistently or frequently feel like they're not enough, and I would say couple things about that, and then I'll answer your question because it's actually different than the Gen Zers. I think as parents, it is our responsibility to like build and model and reinforce confidence, right? And I think what I learned is that these Gen Zers are really hungry for mentors, people that believe in them, people that can help them navigate the noise. The average Gen Zer spends 6.5 hours on their phone a day. And so, you can be a parent who helps them navigate that. And I think also just catch them being good and tell them why they matter. And even simple things like even in the workplace where, instead of saying nice job on that, maybe we say, I noticed how prepared you were for that meeting, man. That made our entire conversation go much more smoothly. Or, you asked great questions today. Man, that curiosity really strengthened the whole team, right? And those kind of things of catching people doing good are things that grow confidence. But I think the most surprising thing was women still scored lower on all markers of confidence. And you would think that that would improve and grow, but it hasn't. And so, I think that's important for people who support women in the workplace. That we could debrief this, Fred, if you want, but there's so many different factors impacting women still today. But you can be a really good role model for helping women in your organization grow confidence, and even just saying like, I believe in you, or I think you can take your career to the next level. Just having some people just say like, this is what I think is possible for you goes a long ways. And that this happens with sports teams I see, and coaches saying like, man, I think you can become an All-American. And just that coach saying like, I believe you can become an All-American. Or, that male CEO saying, I think you can be VP one day, to, a female on your staff. Those kind of things really go a long way in terms of just growing confidence.
Yeah, and with all of the research I've done and the coaching on boldness as a
Yes.
life skill, it's boldness for women is a very different thing than boldness for men. And because it's very easy as a woman to suddenly be labeled as, oh, she's just really aggressive, or
Hmm.
demanding and
Hmm.
stuff like that. Whereas if a man
Hmm.
were doing exactly the same things, they go like, well, he's a natural born leader.
I
You
know it's unfortunate, or we're called the B word or something like that, right? So we
You're
have a
in
lot.
trouble in the back room,
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Exactly. We have a lot more to navigate, and there's still this glass ceiling.
yeah. I mean, men, they may be called an, an a-hole, right?
Right.
There isn't really an equivalent to being called a bitch, right? In for men,
Yeah.
some guys go like, "That's right, I am. I'm the biggest a-hole in the room," and half the people go like, "Yeah, that's why he's kicking butt all the time." It's so
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting, Fred. Like here's a couple of data points we found about women. We found they experience more of a harsh inner critic. They experience more fear that holds them back. They experience more feelings like they're not enough, and they do compare themselves to other people compared to men. But what's interesting is, when you just said like, what's the most interesting finding? I talked about women, but then I thought, another interesting finding that's I thought was fascinating is we found 70% of people struggle with a harsh inner critic or have difficulty letting go of mistakes. 70%. And so you think of our work as a coach, why that so is important, and why, even learning more about confidence and hiring a coach, or, getting more information by reading books. 70% of people struggle with a harsh inner critic and have difficulty letting go of mistakes, right? And this is like Americans and in all generations. And so when I think about that, I think, wow, that's a lot of people, their inner voice holding them back from their potential and being super bold like you teach.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. One of the points I make over and over again is nobody stops us more than we do, and it's
Hmm.
because the we have all of these messages that we tell ourselves. I'm not, whether it's I'm not good at math, or I'm not comfortable in crowds, or I don't sing well, or I don't know how to dance, or I could just don't have any facility with a musical instrument, or people don't find me interesting, and it all boils down to some redefining yourself as unworthy of
Yes.
love, success, opportunity, whatever. And it stops them. It stops them in their tracks rather than other people. And what bold people have learned is is if you don't stop yourself, almost nobody else does either. And you know, the average person who is feeling this unworthiness is so worried about, oh well, what are people going to think? And
Right.
the liberation of letting go of other people's opinions can be transformational. But how are people going to do that? How do you help people build confidence?
Well, I think of like we need these toolkits, right? This I think about like this imaginary like belt on our fanny pack or whatever we might call it on our like I don't know, it's a funny word to say, but like
Don't go around
something.
what a penny pack is at
I
some point.
know, I know. We're just going to call it a high performance toolkit. That's way better. Okay. But I want you to think about like having this toolkit that you can use in moments where you feel pressure or you lack confidence. And I believe that we need different tools because people need to be taught how to do it. And I think about for myself, I was a really high level college athlete. I ran the fastest mile in the state of Iowa my senior year. So I just had like so much confidence, going into college. But then in college, like I really struggled and I was constantly comparing myself to other people, just like struggling with my own mental health, which then drastically declined my performance. What I did see a sport and performance psychologist, but she was pretty theoretical. She wasn't like, she wouldn't tell me like exactly what to do. And so when I work with athletes and leaders and entrepreneurs, like here's what to do in the situation. Like here's a tool you can use. So two that I would love to share because these are two of the tools I teach literally to probably everyone I work with. Is one tool is called Learn, Burn, Return. And I wrote this tool in my book, my first book, Beyond Grit. And it's basically this tool of letting go, of moving on quickly, of protecting your confidence. And confidence is something you have to protect. And it's based around this kind of research area on self compassion, which this is led by a woman named Kristen Neff, or she's one of the leading researchers in the area. And she talks about how self compassion is giving yourself the same kindness as you would to a best friend when you fail or when you feel inadequate or you've experienced a mistake. And self compassion is connected to higher performance. So, this is why being kind to yourself is the way to get ahead instead of being harsh and critical, like you just said, Fred. So, here's the tool. It's called Learn, Burn, Return. Can I tell you a story as I share this tool?
Yes, please. And I love that you're giving something tactical because I'm all about, yeah, but how do I do it? How do I
Exactly.
action? It's like somebody telling you need to be more confident. It's like, yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you so much.
Right, right. And I've seen this before where coaches just like be confident. It was like, okay,
Doesn't make
how do
me
I do that? Tell me. Yeah, yeah, that doesn't help me.
would shrink my confidence. Somebody goes like,
Yeah,
it's them saying, wow, you look really nervous. Well, that would make me even more nervous. That it's, oh, you mean it's noticeable? So
yeah,
yeah,
exactly,
what's
exactly.
what's
So
what
he, all right, here's the story. So, and the story has been written about, so I can openly disclose it. But I've worked with an NFL player named Adam Thielen for quite some time, and I worked with him in college, and I work with his college football team called Minnesota State. And during a playoff game, he made a really big mistake at the beginning of the game, and he fumbled the ball. Okay, so he puts his kind of fist right here in his by his cheek, and he pushes it down. Well, no one knows exactly what he's doing besides I knew, right? And then next drive, he's right back in like that fast. Okay, and he catches this 43-yard catch later on in the game that helps the Minnesota Vikings, win the game. And afterwards, this ESPN reporter asked him, like, how did you move on so quickly from this mistake and what did you do? And I'm a little embarrassed to tell you what he said. Okay. He said, well, I was pretending to flush a toilet. Okay. So he was pressing like the lever down. And basically what he was using is this tool called Learn, Burn, Return. And so of course the next day, in ESPN, it's like mental performance coach teaches Adam Thielen to flush away his mistakes. And I'm like, that's how I get headlining ESPN, flushing a toilet, of all things. There you go.
I'll update right there.
So, oh, okay.
Let me just, there's some people who are just listening to the podcast. Describe that movement if they're not watching that he was doing.
So
So
he kind of put his fist by his cheek, and then he like pushed it down. He like kind of like a lever. Like you might be opening up a door, you hold it, and then he push like a lever on a door where you have to push down, not turn, right? So it's just like this action. And the action represented his ability to move on. And so in the learn, burn, return tool, the learn is what would I do differently next time? And that's really important. The next time, what would you do differently next time? So let's take Adam, for example. He went over to the sidelines. Okay, what would I do to prevent that fumble next time? He takes the lesson. But most people, Fred, they ruminate on that lesson. They're over and over and over and over and over, right? And they don't just think about it and then let it go. And so that's where the burn comes in. The burn is like choosing a phrase or action that you use every time. And you only use the same one every time because it strengthens a new neural pathway. And you're less likely to overthink. So what Adam was doing was flushing. What I say is how fast? That fast with a snap, right? Maybe you want to take Taylor Swift's Shake It Off. Maybe just do a little shimmy. But an action or a phrase is great because you can do it together, and you want to do the same one every time. And then the return means you build your confidence back up. Most people I know, Fred, they ruminate on the learn, especially if it's something really important to them. They might eventually let it go, but they don't return. They don't build their confidence. They don't say like, hey, I'm meant for this. This is my passion and my purpose. This is exactly what I'm here for. We have to build our after the mistake or difficulty. There we go.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because it dovetails so much with your study and how people stay attached to a mistake.
Exactly.
Like I tell people, it's like, yeah, something goes bad, take a few minutes and mourn it. It's like, wow, that went as bad as it could possibly go. and
yeah.
And like, okay, yeah, I get to feel bad about it, but don't stay there. Say, oh, honor the loss and grieve it, and then move, and then say, okay, what's the information? What do I do with that information? What do I learn from it? And then burn it. How do I let it go? I know so many people that are wonderful people, successful in so many ways, but they are clinging to these few things that went as if we don't bumble our way through life, like without being experts at much of anything.
What I like about the learn, burn, return is it gives people steps. It gives people like, okay, now I know what to do. Boom, 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 right? Versus like, and why is it hard to let go? What's interesting is almost all my audiences, because I do several, keynotes every month. And I ask people like, raise your hand if you're an overthinker. And Fred, to be honest, 90% of the room raises their hands. And I think the 10% are just
still overthinking whether they should raise their hand or not.
Exactly. Right. You know it. Okay. You know it. And because I find most high achievers are overthinkers. Most people who want to do really well are overthinkers. And one of the things we found in our confidence study is these 8 pillars to grow your confidence. And one is releasing judgment and letting go of mistakes. So that is important to grow confidence. Another one is making sure you're prepared. We know just from the research in performance psychology and Albert Bandura's work, preparation does build confidence. Setting goals is a third way, finding a way to achieve those goals and being clear on them and sticking with them, which is all about your grit, right? Number 4 is knowing who you are, like understanding who you are, like growing your authenticity and showing up in that way is a 4th way to grow confidence. Celebrating your accomplishments. And this is where it's really important that leaders celebrate confidence accomplishments outwardly, and they can do that just by catching people being good. And again, kind of this idea of like, praising in public, criticizing in private is so important to grow confidence. Here we go. Number 6 is being your own internal coach and your own internal cheerleader, right? And so being not listening to that inner critic in your voice and talking to yourself really powerfully, telling yourself the truth is key. Regulating your emotions after setbacks. So picking yourself back up, telling yourself it's not the end of the world, right? And moving on quickly and protecting your confidence is key. And the last one is getting support from other people like mentors, coaches, other positive influences. And that's something we know that continues to grow confidence.
Fabulous stuff. You know what's interesting is at one point, because I'm a fairly big AI user at this point, mostly for content and improving my content and expanding it. But I said to Chat GPT, I said, you know a lot about me. I said, I feel like I have some limiting beliefs that I can't quite identify. And
That's awesome.
it starts asking me questions. And then all of a sudden it says, it isolates some things and it says, would you like me to, you know, help you release yourself? Um, so, and so one of the things I'm gonna actually, uh, because I thought at one point I felt like, is my message really resonating with people? And it just says, you know, think of 5 people that have been impacted by your book and what they said to you. And I
Cool.
immediately think of those people, and it just reversed it and just said like, yeah, it's not going to resonate with everybody, but it's incredibly powerful with some people, and that's who I have to find. And it like attacked this limiting belief that, oh, I'm not real, my topic doesn't resonate,
Yeah.
which is, that's a
Which
story.
isn't true,
Yeah,
right? Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to ask that first question. Could this possibly be true? Could this generalization that you've come up with possibly be true? And maybe it isn't, but it's, I love the idea of burn as a word. It's like, okay, there it is. It happened. I'm going to flush it away. Because it's behind me, and nobody's going to think about it more than I am. You know,
That's true. No one's thinking about you. Most people are thinking about themselves.
themselves, right? And like they,
Yeah.
you know, I've actually gone back to people and apologized for something I said that made me feel really like it's like this. I'm kind of embarrassed that this was what came out of my mouth, and I I hope you'll forgive me because it's really gnawed at me, and I should have taken it back immediately or whatever. Anything like that. Invariably, they say, I don't remember that.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
Well,
I'm thinking
I've
about
been
so
around for
many.
20 years,
I know. But I think this is just such a great example, Fred, of the ways we get in our own way. And, I think we have to be careful not to listen to that inner voice inside our head because we do have this negativity bias. I have this tool that I wrote about in Beyond Grit for Business, and it's just 3 quick questions when you experience an automatic negative thought because most of our thoughts are automatic. They're not serving us, and we think things like, do I really make a difference, or am I really meant for this, or this is too hard for me. I mean, everyone can relate to this. I used to think I was the only one that had this negative voice in my head when I was in grad school, but it's like, no, this is just part of the human experience. And here's the truth meter: 3 quick questions you can ask yourself to examine the thought. And sometimes I have people like write it down because then it does help you. Like if you write that thought down, like, well, Fred, what's an example of an automatic negative thought that appears for you more than you'd like it to?
uh, is that I'm take on too many. I'm not diligent enough to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish.
Okay, so I'm not diligent enough to accomplish my goals. All right. So first question, is that true that you aren't diligent enough to accomplish your goals?
It feels like I'm not getting to enough, and that's what I get to the end of the day and I haven't accomplished everything I'm trying to accomplish. So that's the fact that I
Hmm.
interpret as not diligent enough.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. That's helpful. So it may or may not be true, but at the end of the day, what's true is you're not getting done the things that are most important to you. Okay. Okay. That's important. So question two, is that thought serving you that you're not diligent enough to reach your goals?
Uh, Not at all. I don't feel good thinking it. It doesn't help me to move on or move through or achieve more
Hmm.
or solve it.
Hmm. Or solve it. And it's like you're focusing on what you aren't instead of what you are, right? And so, like, when we use general statements like, I am not, it's about our self image. Like, I am not diligent enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not tall enough, or I'm not athletic enough. I'm not, like all the not enoughs. So, what would be a more empowering thought you could choose instead of I'm not diligent enough to reach my goals?
I am so ambitious that I take on many, many things, and I need to prioritize them. But it's partly because I believe I can do so much, and I have achieved so much. Um,
Absolutely, you have.
yeah,
You got a best-selling book behind you on the shelf, Wall Street Journal bestseller. Big deal. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah. It's
yeah,
but as you say, it's we accentuate the negative and
we
eliminate the
do.
positive. You
We
know.
do. And like I'm just using this example, Fred, so that everyone can relate to it. It's like, you really believing that you're not diligent enough to reach your goals holds you back from sharing your message. Because what I just heard is like the underlying thing there is more about just prioritizing the most important things. And I think that is this is a trait of entrepreneurs, at least really successful entrepreneurs I work with, is it's like it's hard to say no. It's like there's lots of shiny objects. It's like, oh yeah, I like to do that, I like to do that, I like to do that, but we have to pick and choose. And it's almost like, and this is like what we say yes to, we're really saying no to something else. And the no to something else might be the thing that really is gonna push us through, or the thing that we really need to be focused on, and that's going to make the biggest difference for our followers or listeners.
Yeah, it really is a challenge when not everybody is plagued with the ambition I am, and probably you as well. It's like we've accomplished a lot, but we feel in that is always I could have accomplished more. I
Hmm.
remember the author of The Godfather, that book that became an enormous bestseller and uh, two of the best movies most people regard of all time as the source of it. And at the end of his life, he said, "I feel like I should have wrote more." It's like,
Yeah.
but you know, be a little nicer to yourself. It's like Paul McCartney going, "Geez, I haven't written a big hit in a long, long time." Yeah, but you have a catalog of the greatest songs ever written. So I don't think he says that. I think he has moved way beyond that and loves performing, which at his age he's doing with vigor and impact on people. And everybody I know that loves him says, "I'm going to see him. He's coming through, and I'm going to see him because it could be the last time." But
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
just come away inspired with how vibrant he is, how performing and delivering these songs means so much to these tens of thousands of people in front of him.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating, right? And again, we tend to focus on what we don't have instead of what we do have, and I think that takes daily mental training. I think that takes daily using tools like Learn, Burn, Return, and the Truth Meter. And my book Beyond Grit has basically a tool every 52 chapters, to build your high performance toolkit. And Fred, you teach some of those tools too, right? But
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
what's so important is like every day you got to work to keep your mind on purpose. Every day you got to build and protect your confidence and model confidence, because it's something that fluctuates. You get tough feedback. There's a setback. Maybe someone is sick in your family. Maybe you're dealing with health issues. Maybe you're near a big, like a big change in your life, like you're moving or you're near retirement. Like all of those things, you're starting a new job can impact your confidence. So it needs to be daily that we are training our mind for peak performance.
Yeah. And moving through the world boldly and with confidence uh, makes for a more fulfilling life. And I think that's what you and I are we want people to have that. We don't want them to develop regrets and spend all of their time over judging themselves and comparing themselves to other people. And so you've got a course coming up that I want you to talk about. There's an event
Yes.
you have that's coming up very soon.
Awesome. So I'm so excited about this, Fred. This is our first annual Mentally Strong conference, and my company is called the Mentally Strong Institute. So it makes sense we're hosting a Mentally Strong conference. It is, if you're listening to this before this date, is January 9th in the morning, and it's virtual. And I brought some of my favorite speaker friends, professional speakers. They're going to be all talking about this idea of being mentally strong for the new year and confidence for the new year. And the best part about it is only $39, and you get a free copy of my upcoming book with Simon and Schuster called The Confidence Mindset. No one can get that yet. You're going to be the first to get it. And so you get the conference registration virtually for all morning, and then you get to be the first to get my new book, all about confidence and ways to grow it. And people can go to mentallystrongconference.com to register. So mentallystrongconference.com to register. It's going to be an incredible day.
I'm going to put that in the show notes, but mentallystrongconference.com. It's a virtual event, January 9th, 2026. So this podcast is released before that. So hopefully you jump on that because it's going to change 2026 for you. Wouldn't you like to have way more confidence in 2026 and do it, virtually? You don't have to go anywhere to do it. You're going to get this. You're going to get this incredible value. So I really encourage people to do it. And remind us the name of your new book, because Beyond Grit you can get Beyond Grit by Dr. Cindra Kamphoff
Yes.
on Amazon.
You can get that on Amazon. And if you want to follow the release for the new book that comes out September 1st, and it's called The Confidence Mindset, you can go to drcindra.com. And that's actually where you can find our full report for our confidence study. I'd encourage you to download it. There's a lot of things that I didn't mention in in our interview and our conversation today that you want to check out. Specifically, how do you grow confidence? How can you as a leader grow confidence? And what do you do to kill confidence that you might not even know? So that's drcindra.com. And I'll also offer just a way to give back to anybody, to support anybody who's listening that wants to have the best year possible. So I'm going to offer you, just as a way to give back and to support you, a free coaching call with my team, which is incredible. So it could be with myself or my team. And you can also go to free mental breakthrough call for that. So free mental breakthrough call. And we'll just help you have a moment of more clarity and understanding. That's what a breakthrough means to us, to help you really start the year in a powerful way. And lots of resources we gave today.
Yeah, I mean, an abundance here to start their new year. Cindra's name is spelled Cindra. So her site is Dr. Cindra, Cindra.com. It's a good place to start, but you can also find her on LinkedIn. And of course, everything's going to be in the show notes, so you can track her down and sign up for this conference. Cindra, I'm so enthusiastic about what you do because I obviously it is my cause as well. It is so valuable, and I love how you've come at it and these simple tools that people can use. And there's way more that she has that if you start to read the books and do this conference, you're going to find out that your dreams are going to become way more possible than you imagine. So
absolutely. Fred, thank you so much for having me. It was so fun to talk to you, and keep up the great work with the podcast and the book.
Thank you so much, everyone. This is your way to turn 2026 into your best year ever. So build your confidence and seize every glorious moment out there of opportunity and fun and adventure and love. And Dr. Kampfoff, thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you, Fred. Appreciate everyone who's listening.
All right, everybody. Have a great year.